And this is the result. And this was their number one priority, was to build a center for ourselves that would create our own space and place for our community. Next slide. So if you come to our community, of course, this project location is in a prime location near our commercial area. And we are already utilizing 1 acre of that site for not only our farmers market, also for, we have used it for our hydroponics hub and for training for our community. Next slide. This is the vision that was that our community came up with when our stakeholders were working on our, I believe, on our design charrette. So we had 2 stages. We first brought in stakeholders to do a design charrette, and then our next stage was our master plan, which was, of course, completed in October of 2021. And this was a vision statement. What you need to know from our community is the majority of people who live here in Panaʻewa are actually descendants of Keaukaha and this region. So they have this really deeper roots into our community and a very deeper commitment to this place. Next slide. And so this is what our site looks like now. There's a hydroponics hub where we hold our farmers market. This is the 1 acre site. And these were some of the challenges and opportunities that our stakeholders came up with when we were working on our design charrette and our master plan. There are some challenges, but the opportunities for this site is really overwhelming and very exciting for our community. Next slide. And of course, in our design DNA, when we secured G70 as our consultant, and we were working on our, this came up in our initial charrette, we were looking at the DNA for our area, putting in a mound, a central mound, and also, next slide, next slide, please. In the design DNA, also doing a configuration of this site toward Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa. And so that is embedded in the design DNA for the project that we are working on. Next slide. And this is our conceptual plan that we derived from our master plan. And so this is an overall vision that we have. We may do some slight modifications in the ag area in the back, but for our primary facility, we are very excited about the opportunity to build this for our community, and not just for the Panaʻewa ag community, which I represent, also for our residential community, and also for our Keaukaha community. So these are our ultimate stakeholders for this site. This would be, I believe, the first community-driven DHHL site in our area of the East Hawaii. I know our Maku'u people community have another site going on, but this would be a site that we could use for East Hawaii. So next slide. And of course, our project components. So I am going to have our expert, Kavika McKeague from G70, has been working with us since 2020 when we secured them to start our initial design charrette. And I'm going to let Kavika jump in and explain all our project components and then move into our environmental assessment components because he is our expert. So mahalo everyone, and I'm going to turn it over now to Kavika to take the reins and walk you through the project components and our environmental assessment. Mahalo.
Mahalo Maile, aloha mai kākou. This is Kavika McKeague. Same thing, I'm not able to share video, but that's okay. I have a face for radio. so some people say. We're super excited to have been working with the Keaukaha-Panaʻewa Farmers Association since the beginning, and just being able to, really be facilitators of their thoughts, their hopes, their dreams, their inspirations, their sense of kuleana to all those that came before them. So what you really see here, and to the person helping me with the presentation, can you go through the next 6 or 7 slides, like pretty steadily here? Really, what we're trying to emphasize is the fact there's a place of entry or a welcome. And the idea is that in total, this particular facility will work as individual units, meaning it has its very dedicated spaces, including the next slide of our gathering pavilion, which is really the heart and center of the ability for people to come and gather, participate in either, a range of keiki to kupuna kinds of activities, ohana gatherings, participate in workshops. And that as part of a gathering space, well, you also need the space to welcome, host cultural kinds of things. Next slide, please. Through this shared courtyard. And the central mountain actually becomes kind of a pivotal kipuka, if you will, or a kind of central point to just kind of have everyone focus on the ability that you could have breakout rooms that are separated by these dividers, but then also can be connected to create one central courtyard area that has all these interconnecting spaces. Next slide. And then as part of the desire of the community to have a certified commercial kitchen that again can be not just to host activities on site, luau, weddings, other kinds of activities to promote the ag, the crops themselves that are being grown on the site, but can also be utilized to help create some small community-based incubator businesses for those up-and-coming chefs and bakers and those kinds of things. Next slide. And then, of course, because it has a very strong farm-centric component, we're trying to expand activities that are really at most right now are maximized on the 1 acre to take it out to the full 10 acres. We do need some requisite storage space for farm equipment, for storing dry goods and other kinds of things that are related to the ag activities themselves. Next slide. And as part of the educational component, right now to expand the idea that right now most of the activity happens underneath these tarp tents, that we actually would have 2 dedicated pavilions that extend out into the ag fields in which you can have this element of place-based learning, whether it's training farmers themselves, training youth to develop their own skills and abilities as next generation farmers, but also create these open space venues to connect again back to the outside. Again, most of this site, as we'll get into, is pretty inundated with invasive species, and over time we hope to really transform this space. Next slide. So we talk about community benefits, like as I mentioned, intended to be a gathering space for not just the beneficiaries, but to welcome everyone there that is of this area, to create this educational and training ground for agriculture, and really to create safe haven where people can come and just be themselves to practice. I do understand even during the time of the pandemic, the 1 acre site served as a hub to ensure that people were getting access to certain information, to even being provided meals. So people already know this area, know this organization for being one that is of service to community, and we're just really trying to amplify that by expanding this idea of the wahi ho'okela to create a place of excellence through the programs that will expand and just naturally grow over time to support all of our community's needs here. Next slide. So now quickly transitioning to our consultation process. As most of you folks know, this is requiring a Chapter 343 EA. We did send out approximately 77 notices out to several federal, state, county elected officials, community civic organizations, various schools and individuals, of which we received 12 comments. And what you see here is really the short list of early consultation, and it's things we expect, compliance with state and county codes, obtaining the necessary permits, going through development of a solid waste management plan. And as we get into from concept into schematic and detailed design, to look at opportunities for energy efficiency. And really the one, I would say substantial comment relative to resources and the environment did come from DOFA. That was just to be considerate of the fact that our area is a flyover for and through not just our parcel, but Hilo proper, East Hawaii proper for Ope'apea and our various Hawaiian seabirds. So again, there's rules and regulations that we'll have to follow.